You work full-time, you show up every day, you do everything you're told. So why does it still feel like your money disappears the moment you get paid? This video might be uncomfortable, but if you've ever checked your bank account on Monday and felt stressed, you need to hear this. Because what's happening to American workers right now isn't about being lazy, bad with money, or not trying hard enough. It's something much bigger, and almost no one explains it clearly. Before we break it down, make sure you subscribe, because this channel explains the US economy in simple English without political noise or confusing jargon. Now let's start with something almost every working American experiences. You get paid on Friday and for a brief moment things feel okay, then rent is due. Groceries need to be bought, gas has to be filled. Insurance, utilities, subscriptions, and bills quietly take their turn. And before you even think about saving, your paycheck is already gone. This isn't bad luck. This is how the system now works. For decades, Americans were told that if you work full-time, you'll be fine. That promise used to be mostly true. But today, the math doesn't work anymore. Let's talk about rent first, because rent is where most paychecks go to die. Across America, rent has been rising faster than wages for years. People aren't moving into luxury apartments, yet they're paying more every single year. The same unit, the same neighborhood, but a higher bill. When rent eats 30, 40, or even 50% of your income, everything else becomes a struggle. And once rent is paid, you're already behind. Next comes groceries, which feel like a weekly shock instead of a normal expense. You buy the same food you always bought, but the total is higher every time. Nothing changed in your habits, but prices kept moving. Food companies face higher costs, transportation costs more, and inflation quietly shows up at the checkout line. That higher grocery bill doesn't feel dramatic, but over a month, it quietly drains your paycheck. Then there's gas, which hits people who commute especially hard. You drive the same distance, to the same job, yet filling your tank costs more than it did last year. Gas prices don't just affect driving, they raise the cost of almost everything else too. So even when wages stay the same, daily life becomes more expensive. Now let's talk about wages, because this is where the real problem lives. Wages in America have not kept up with the cost of living. On paper, some wages increased, but not nearly enough to match rising expenses. So while prices move fast, income moves slow. That gap is why working harder no longer feels like it pays off. Many Americans are doing exactly what they were told to do, yet falling behind anyway. And this creates a quiet kind of stress that never really goes away. You're not broke because you're irresponsible. You feel broke because your paycheck has less buying power every year. Saving money now feels like a luxury instead of a normal habit. Unexpected expenses feel like emergencies instead of inconveniences. And financial anxiety becomes part of daily life. This pressure doesn't just affect bank accounts. It affects mental health, relationships, and confidence. People blame themselves, even though the problem isn't personal. The system shifted, but expectations didn't. Another issue most people don't talk about is how many costs are now fixed. Rent, insurance, utilities, and debt payments don't adjust when income falls behind. They take their share no matter what. So workers lose flexibility, and one bad month can spiral quickly. This is why so many Americans live paycheck to paycheck, even with full-time jobs. It's not about bad choices, it's about tight margins. When margins are thin, stress is high. And when stress is high, it feels like you're always one step from falling behind. Now here's the part that really frustrates people. They're told to budget better, skip coffee, or work harder. But budgeting can't fix prices that keep rising faster than income. Hard work can't outpace a system where costs move faster than paychecks. This doesn't mean effort doesn't matter, but effort alone isn't enough anymore. That realization is scary, because it breaks a promise many people grew up believing. Yet understanding the real problem is the first step toward making better decisions. Awareness helps people stop blaming themselves. It also helps people plan smarter instead of feeling stuck. That's why conversations like this matter. If this video describes your life, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are quietly dealing with the same pressure. And talking about it openly is how things start to change. If you've made it this far, comment broke so others know they're not alone either. And share this video with someone who works full-time but still feels like their money never lasts. This channel exists to explain what's really happening in the US economy without blaming regular people. Subscribe if you want more clear, honest breakdowns that actually help you understand your money. Because the problem isn't that Americans stopped working hard. The problem is that the rules changed and no one warned them. And once you see that clearly, everything finally starts to make sense.